Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
I'm going to read this morning from Canto 3, Chapter 19, verses 23 and 24. This, the killing of the demon Hiranyaksha, and the initial 22 verses of the chapter was the battle beginning between Lord Viraha and Hiranyaksha. The whole series of verses without purport, just the battle scene, back and forth, saying harsh things, back and forth. Throwing things. So the previous verse was the demigods prayed to the Lord, finish him, so he got his Sudarshan chakra ready to go. Then verse 23, at that very moment, a shudder suddenly ran through the heart of Diti, the mother of Hiranyaksha. She recalled the words of her husband, Kashyapa, and blood flowed from her breasts. Purport. At Hiranyaksha's last moment, his mother Diti remembered what her husband had said. Although her sons would be demons, they would have the advantage of being killed by the personality of Godhead himself. She remembered the incident by the grace of the Lord, and her breasts flowed blood instead of milk. In many instances we find that when a mother is moved by affection for her sons, milk flows from her breasts. In the case of the demon's mother, the blood could not transform into milk, but it flowed down her breasts as it was. Blood transforms into milk. To drink milk is auspicious, but to drink blood is inauspicious, although they are one and the same thing. This formula is applicable in the case of cow's milk also. I'm going to read the next verse in purport. Text 24. When the demon saw his magic forces dispelled, he at once, again, came into the presence of the personality of Godhead, Keshava, and, full of rage, he tried to embrace him with his arms to crush him. But, to his greatest amazement, he found the Lord standing outside the circle of his arms. Purport. In this verse, the Lord is addressed as Keshava because he killed the Keshi, the demon Keshi, in the beginning of creation. I looked up to see if there is such a thing as any reference to demon Keshi in the beginning of creation. I couldn't find it. Madhun Kaitaba, yes. I didn't have to look for that one, but Keshi, no mention other than this purport. Keshava is also a name of Krishna. Krishna is the origin of all incarnations, and it is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita that Govinda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, exists simultaneously in his different incarnations and expansions. The demon's attempt to measure the Supreme Personality of Godhead is significant. The demon wanted to embrace him with his arms, thinking that with his limited arms he could capture the Absolute by material power. He did not know that God is the greatest of the great and the smallest of the small. No one can capture the Supreme Lord or bring him under his control. But the demoniac person always attempts to measure the length and breadth of the Supreme Lord. By his inconceivable potency, the Lord can become the universal form, as explained in Bhagavad Gita, and at the same time, he can remain within the box of his devotees as their worshipable deity. There are many devotees who keep a statue of the Lord in a small box and carry it with them everywhere. Every morning they worship the Lord in the box. The Supreme Lord Keshava, or the personality of Godhead Krishna, is not bound by any measurement of our calculation. He can remain with his devotee in any suitable form, yet he is unapproachable by any amount of demoniac activities. The usual description of Keshava has to do with his hair. Long, beautiful hair. That's standard. So it will remain an item of curiosity. The Lord killing the demon Keshi at the beginning of creation. And even the Lord killing Keshi in Vrindavan. We don't know him as Keshava because he killed the Keshi demon in Vrindavan. It will remain an item of curiosity. And from that, Prabhupada goes into this explanation of Keshava's name of Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And within Krishna is everything, because he's the source of everything. And all expansions, his different incarnations and expansions, they all exist within him, or he is within them, that is in the sense that he's the cause of them, as the cause of all causes. And then comes this discussion about trying to measure or capture that which has no limit. Well, you can't. The mind can't, the arms can't, any material effort can't. Because he's everything. It's similar to Mother Yasoda's trying to bind Krishna with rope. Because he had already shown Mother Yasoda that within him is everything, the whole cosmic manifestation. Everything is within him. So how do you get a rope big enough to go around the cosmic manifestation? It's to be a really big rope. So at the same time he can be the small child of Mother Yasoda, and at the same time so big that all the universes are within him at the same time. Just like the Brahmasamhita verse, Eko Pyaso Rachayatam Jadadanda Koti. All the universes exist in him, and simultaneously he in his fullness is within every atom at the same time. So good luck Hiranyaksha trying to capture the personality of Godhead. What was going on previously is, in the course of their combat, the Lord struck Hiranyaksha, and then he just disappeared. He had mystic powers, and then all these mystical things started appearing in the sky and coming at the Lord, just mystic powers. When the Sudarshan Chakra appeared, his mystic powers were defeated. And that's where he started running at the Lord with his arms to crush him, put his arms around him, and then the Lord is outside of his arms. Powerful, but not powerful enough. Because there's what power can match the power of the Supreme Lord? There's a number of those circumstances. And when it's the devotee, like Lord Brahma showing his power, Krishna didn't. Krishna showed his power. And the result for Lord Brahma was submission to the personality of Godhead, and the result of Hiranyaksha is he doesn't get it. And the inimical state of a demoniac mentality is, even if shown the superlative nature of the personality of Godhead, with their own eyes they can see, they can't accept. A nice section in Jiva Goswami's Bhakti Sandarbha that says this is one of the stages of offense, or anarthas within the heart, is even one sees, one cannot see. Or pashati na pashati. They can see. The example he gives is of Duryodhana seeing the partial universal form in the royal assembly. He couldn't accept that he's God. He's got some mystic power. I know a lot of people, a lot of yogis, they have mystic power. I have mystic power too. So, the demoniac mentality is very consistent. And the principle of demoniac life is non-acceptance of the personality of Godhead. Listening to one lecture recently, and Prabhupada was saying, it's very simple. Do you accept the personality of Godhead? If not, demon. Big scholar, don't accept the personality of Godhead, demon. So big politician, has many people that elected him to the power, doesn't accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead, demon, like that. So, some demoniac persons are more stubborn than others, and Hiranyaksha, very, very stubborn. This other reference to Diti, in an earlier section, Diti approached her husband for having children at an inauspicious time, but she was quite insistent, and he yielded to her insistence, but then indicated, because of this inauspicious time, your children will be demons. But some special benediction that they'll be killed by the personality of Godhead, so they'll be relieved of all that demoniac spirit. So she remembered when she's somehow witnessing this battle and feeling, my son will now be killed. The Sudarshan chakra of Lord Vishnu will surely kill my son. So she was feeling this strong affection for her son. And in feeling that strong affection, instead of milk flowing from her breast, as is described here, affectionate mothers, sometimes that happens. In relation to Mother Sachi, it's said over and over, it happened regularly. She had such affection for Nimai. But so the two are the same thing, just milk of a cow or milk of a mother or milk. Milk is a transformation of blood. And if it doesn't get transformed into milk, then this other manifestation. So it's the point that Prabhupada is making at the end is cow's milk is very auspicious and nutritious and beneficial. However, the other form of blood itself is the opposite. The demoniac mentality is take the milk and then kill the cow. And horrible mentality. But just hearing these narrations of the Lord and His pastimes is because it's a major part of this is reciprocation with the demigods. Of course, the whole thing is a Leela of the Lord in any case. So the demigods, they're put into a difficult situation. The earth has fallen out of orbit. And the demoniac Hiranyaksha is the person responsible. So please do something. So the Lord does something. He rescues the earth, big battle, back and forth battle with demigods, please finish him. They didn't have the capacity. He was more powerful than the demigods. Then where do demons get their power from? From the same place the demigods get their power from. If that's the case, why are the demons more powerful than the demigods who are receiving their power from the same source? And this contest between divine and demoniac, it's not that always the demoniac must be weaker, because after all, if you're divine, then you should be stronger. In the end, it goes in the favor of the divine. But demoniac may be more powerful. Look at the circumstance of the world. Divine and demoniac. Demoniac is certainly winning. But in the end, those who are divine, or those who take shelter of the personality of God, they're protected. And eventually become victorious. Now, in some cases, that the demoniac becomes so powerful that the Lord personally has to come. That's what happens in this age of Kali. The demoniac force becomes so strong and overwhelming that the personality of God comes and sets it straight. And for us, given the circumstance that the world is in, Lord Chaitanya has come to give us the Sankirtan process that counteracts the influence of demoniac culture. Demoniac culture is still advancing, that's for sure. But in the lives of devotees, we can be protected from that, the worst of it, and make the advancement of this demoniac force slow down. The golden age within the iron age, in other words, this Yuga Dharma. It's important to take shelter of it, and it's important to propagate it as a service to the personality of Godhead, a service to those who are victims of the age of Kali. Now some persons, they're the agents of Kali, not just victims of Kali. So such persons, they're not going to respond favorably. But many persons, they respond favorably. And so that the propagation is needed. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. Any thoughts or discussion on this?
Well, I was thinking that the prevailing of the demoniac nature or situations, it's almost like a necessity for creating opportunities to take shelter of Krishna. Because if there is no obstacle, then what is the motivation for
complacency? Well, also, it's just the modes of nature, and it's one of them is ignorance, and within everything in the material world is ignorance, and there's degrees of it. So there's superlative degrees of it. It's just part of the territory. Yeah. Obstacles in the form of ignorance harassing good people is a further impetus to take shelter. But it's not exactly, I mean, one of the arguments that people make is you have to know what misery is in order to know what happiness is. You have to suffer in order to know what being happy is. It's just, so it's good. So yes, it's a consequence when there's demoniac forces that it accelerates shelter taking. But good association can accelerate shelter taking as well. Satya Yoga and the association of saintly persons is an impetus for taking shelter. But the modes of nature are there.
Hey Krishna Maharaj. I mean, it reminds me the transformation of blood turns into milk. You know, like during my college days, when we talk about vegetarianism, like it's quite common, especially in India, like people who argue like, you know how the milk is also a form of a blood, and you consume blood. I struggled how to give them, I would say like that's nature's arrangement, but it's still like not convincing. On the other hand, when we talk about the plants, the degree of a pain is very limited. That's quite convincing. Is there any suggestions or recommendations to give an explanation on the aspect of the milk?
I think it's fine, nature's arrangement. Cows don't give calves milk, blood, they give milk. And within the milk one is a mode of goodness product, and the other is a mode of passion product, coming from the body. One is clean, and the other is impure. One is pure, and the other is impure. Exactly, nature's arrangement. And so, if persons aren't convinced, they want blood.
Guru Maharaj, may I ask a question from today's topic?
Yeah.
So, I have a couple of situations, like one is when I invite couple of, our friends to home programs, so they offer with love. I know for sure they're asking with love, may I also cook something and bring. So we don't know their standards, how they offer, or they do worship demigods, so we don't know their offering standards. So how should I tackle this situation?
Srila Prabhupada set a standard that was really simple. This is from the days when there were no temples in India, and he, along with he called it the World Sankirtan Party, they traveled from place to place, and people would invite them. So the person who was the organizer had a set of questions. Are you vegetarian? Yes or no? And then, so, yes. And do you cook with onions and garlic or no? Can you cook without onions and garlic? Yes. Very good. You can prepare such and such, bring it here, and we'll show you how to offer. Now that's a public, it's when we don't have a temple, we don't have any situation, we're just going into their territory. And if the answer, the family said, no, we're not vegetarian, then the answer is we can accept fruit and milk. And we'll offer that to Krishna. So this is different. This is families that, you can prepare everything. You don't need them to prepare anything, but they want. So, yes, similar set of questions. Are you vegetarian? And if the answer is no, then you can bring some salad. And if it's yes, can you cook without onions and garlic? And so, but we don't know what their standards of cleanliness are, and so forth. But we can say, this is because, give them a little lesson without offending them. That may be a little challenging without offending them, but because this is our training. You've heard the phrase, cleanliness is next to godliness. Yeah. So, we're, when cooking, please keep everything very clean. And I'll show you when you bring it, how to offer. And you maybe just have them make rice or something that's not too difficult. Doesn't have to be, because how devotees prepare with spicing and this thing and that, it's, very different.
The other situation is like yesterday we invited for the home program, and the same way they also invite us. They are from different practice, and they say we have another Swamiji who's also talking about Bhagavad Gita. We are getting a couple of invitations, and it's very difficult for us to
say no.
Yeah.
Do they invite you to their home, or they invite you to their gatherings, or
gatherings,
both?
Not the home.
I never had to navigate that territory myself. What would you say?
depends on the relationship. If it is very early, then I don't see any advantage to going there, because they are already caught up in a particular track. It would be hard to extricate from that kind of association. But if the relationship is strong, then we can do probably more to establish the point where what is the right source, what is not the right source, kind of probing into that area and try to investigate into the background of the person who is coming, and then emphasizing on the principle of hearing in the disciplic succession. That's what is coming to mind.
Well, surely it depends. So my thoughts are, surely it depends on the relationship. Everything depends on relationship. And I mean, I imagine, because I don't hear this question much, I imagine what devotees do is they just make excuses, and they can't come this time, they can't come that time, they can't come that time, and eventually they get the idea that you don't want to come. Our child has an exam and I have to help him. He has a big something. Not feeling well, I have to stay home. Is that so? Yeah, I very much what you said. I'm thinking a situation in China where somebody started coming around, associating with the devotees, learned 2 or 3 things, and then went off and started their own, organization, speculating all over the place. And then Chinese culture is such that once there's a teacher, he's looked at like father, and they can't break away. I mean, they can, but it's culturally a challenge. So one devotee met some of these people, and said, they're just spending time, hours and hours, going over stuff, and it's the sentiment for the teacher, the cultural sentiment for the teacher, is hard to break. But the discussion is education about what's what. So for example, these people, they have their Swamiji, but they also have Bhagavad Gita, and the Swamiji has to say what Bhagavad Gita says, otherwise you ain't Swamiji. So you had just discussed. Let's aside from this one, that one, just let's look at Bhagavad Gita. And what does Bhagavad Gita say? Like we did a little bit of that yesterday. And Bhagavad Gita is very clear. If you accept Bhagavad Gita, they say yes, you've won, or the chess game is over. You can have dialogue with them, gently and humble persuasion kind of dialogue, but we can take part in other organizations, functions, and activities, provided there's, clarity on what the Siddhanta is. Now, so certainly there's such things as interfaith, but this is more social. So when it's social, not just interfaith, you're sharing our views are over here and others' views are over there. We're not so comfortable. We're stepping outside of what Krishna says, or what Bhagavad Gita teaches us. So let's have some discussion about what Bhagavad Gita teaches. How's that? Sure. And after going through it, so you think about it, and this is the reason why I'm not so comfortable. Depends on the relationship, what you can say. And then they talk to their friends, and their friends aren't of the same wavelength, and they freak out. Anyway, it's a little touchy. Yeah.
Maharaj, Hiranyaksha, and whenever we discuss demons, it always reminds me of my own propensity to do harm or damage. I mean, not to that extent where the earth is knocked out of the orbit, but even when I am doing some service or at the temple or elsewhere, the thought that it's kind of like a double-edged sword, where I could do it wrong and it could be much worse than not doing anything at all. It always disturbs me, Maharaj, that my own propensity to do harm.
Well, it started sounding much darker than the way it ended up. But what you mean by your propensity for doing harm is, if you make a mistake, there may be some collateral damage when you make a mistake. That's propensity for doing harm. That's what you're referring to.
Right. Like, as example, I might be doing some service at the temple, and in the process, because of my own imperfections, I could hurt somebody or something, like not pay proper respect or something.
Okay, not like drop a pot on their head. Well, that social sensitivity is good, but then it shouldn't paralyze you. Just, you go along. Otherwise, you're going to live in a cave. What are you going to do? You try to improve. And seek Krishna's protection and the devotees' acceptance of you despite your imperfections, as you accept others despite imperfections, because we're on this path of trying to purify ourselves. So I hear what you're saying. It's not just occasionally; it's something that troubles you, that haunts you, or something. You can go on the other side as Krishna's kind. and Krishna will protect you and will protect the others. So navigate, your steering wheel is sincerity, and just move away from situations that are intentionally, at least, knowingly hurtful to others, and the unintentional, you're taking shelter of Krishna. Otherwise, how can you, what's the path of purification? It's devotional service. And devotional service may have some flaws or some mistakes, but Krishna will accept and Krishna will correct. So, Chipram bhavati dharmatma. Another verse? 9:33 or 34. Just after apichet sudaracharo, Chipram bhavati dharmatma, Krishna will correct everything. So you're not alone, you're with Krishna. You had something?
Yeah, I did. Like, is there any reasons in scriptures for why we have salt water in the oceans?
No. Prabhupada gives a reason, but I don't know if it's scriptural. He said it just preserves everything. That's what he said. And then, so that we can get fresh water, there's an arrangement to get fresh water from the vast salt water. Water is evaporated and comes down as clouds without salt. So we have drinking water and we have salt water. That's all he says. I've never heard anything scriptural why there's salt in the ocean. No? Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So this is about kith and kin.
Which?
Kith and kin, our immediate relations, like mother and...
Kith and kin,
Yeah.
okay.
So,
now I get it.
So, especially I'm talking about my mom. She's been chanting 16 rounds for the past almost a year or so. But she has, before she started chanting, she has been hearing to the impersonal talks of various other kind of cults. So I tried giving her some options of listening to our lectures, but she's very much convinced with chanting of 16 rounds. She feels much better with that, but hearing part, she's not ready to, or she's not reluctant, but not very comfortable in getting to hear also. So I was like wondering if there's something that I can do.
This is right on the topic of our Bhagavatam class this morning. Been an interesting question-answer session. Why is there salt in the ocean? I don't know your mother, so I don't know what to say, what will help her. Appeal, as your son, this is a request I'm making of you, Mom. Please. Maybe son to mother, just motherly affection. it one step further. Let me read one verse from Bhagavad Gita to you, once a week. And so she starts to select verses that are not challenging, but nice and so she gets a sense, maybe gets a taste. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam.
HH Romapada Swami Maharaja.
Jai.